going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football. And tonight we are locking in our tips ahead of another round of AFL action, albeit the bye rounds once more. I mean, I complain enough about the early bye rounds. The mid-season bye rounds may be a little bit easier a pill to swallow, but the fact that we're getting less games of football from somebody like myself, and I'm sure many of you at home that love watching the game, it just sucks, doesn't it? Right? I'm not the only one. At any rate, before we dive into my tips for the upcoming round, we need to reflect on my tips from round 12. We had 7 games of football go down, and I tipped 5 from the 7. And the 2 outcomes that came out against myself might have been just a little bit on the wayside of not truly knowing what was going to go down, because we did get an upset with one of the losses that I did get. The other one maybe could have been avoided had I had just used a little bit more ingenuity, but alas, 5 out of 7 is how we walk away from this given round. For the ticks that we did get, the 5 correct, we did tip Hawthorn to defeat St Kilda in the first game. We did have them by a margin of 23. Let's tack on an extra 29 points on top of that. I did not think it would be this emphatic of a defeat, but it was, and Hawthorn showing that they are a true premiership contender this year. The second game is where the upset came. Carlton defeating Geelong. Now, many people can rest on their laurels and say that, you know, Ollie Dempsey was robbed of that goal early in the game, and he definitely was. But in saying that, the script for that game then could play out completely differently. We don't know whether Geelong takes more momentum from that goal. We don't know whether Carlton come back in a bigger, better way. But Geelong walking away 4 points the loss, and Josh Fraser coming out showing that maybe there's a little bit more to the tale than what has been let on with Carlton. I just find it very amusing that Michael Voss leaves, Carlton players get inspired again, and they've now won 3 on the trot. I mean, Josh Fraser has said he doesn't want the head coaching gig, but if he keeps going, it might be hard to take out of his hands. Sydney absolutely fucking mollywalloped Richmond. I didn't think it would be the way of 114 points. I knew it was going to be a big win. I was confident in the fact that this should have been at least, at bare minimum, 10 goals the way of Sydney, and that was without Brodie Grundy in the team as well. This could have been 140, 150 plus points if they had Brodie Grundy running around and tailing it up in that ruck. But as unfortunate as it was to see Richmond absolutely belted from pillar to post, we bounced back with a correct tip. We backed Fremantle to defeat Brisbane in Brisbane, and they did that. Fremantle now sitting solely on top of the ladder, 1 game clear, and I definitely feel we are going to be seeing the purple haze on the final day of the year come the grand final. They're playing some great football. Very hard to deny that fact. What's happening with Brisbane? I do not know, but it actually gives me all confidence in the world that in round 14, when Brisbane and Richmond play each other in Hobart, Richmond might be half a chance, as fucking crazy as that sounds. The next game was my second blemish. We had the Bulldogs defeat Collingwood at Marvel Stadium. I should have just gone with my gut instinct in saying that the Bulldogs play better at Marvel versus Collingwood. For many parts of this game, Collingwood were the better team, but the Bulldogs just finding a way to get it done, especially on the back of Ed Richards, who till 3/4 time had, I think, 12 disposals and very little impact, doubled his disposal count by the end of the game, kicked a couple of goals, and was very pivotal in this game overall. We then backed GWS to defeat Melbourne out at TIO Traeger Park, and they did so in a very big way, and the West Coast Eagles getting it done over Essendon. All but a formality at this point in time, right? I think Essendon have dropped off, so much so that conversation points have now turned to the fact that they're apparently applying to the AFL for some kind of assistance package where they might get an extra couple of picks. It's almost like if they had traded Zach Merritt and gotten those first round picks last year, they might be in a better position with those extra players, right? Right? While I got 5 out of 7, 6 out of 7 was the most correct amount of tips, and there were 4 tipsters this particular round that managed to get that magic number. So congratulations must go to Welsh Duke, Duncan P, Murdoch H, Murdoch H, I, Dan Prakash, Daniel P, and Moon predicts Jude F for all tipping 6 out of 7. The most correct amount of tips coming out of this round. Having a look at the total tips to have a look at our leaderboard, we do still have Welsh Duke Duncan P sitting outright now by 3 tips. Sir, been leading the charge from round 1. Congratulations once more for holding that top spot. Following that, our top 10 is as follows. Skyvo Lana S, another mainstay for the last few seasons. She is sitting in second place on 80 tips. Evelyn May, myself, Ron Schill, Gramercy Riff 78, Big Kev Shendo, Team Wiggles from 3rd through to 8th, all on 79 tips. And then our top 10 rounds off with Dusty Fender 4 and Master Tipper from PA on 78 tips. However, just outside on margins, we have Christopher W, Some Cripple, and Purple Army 2013. So congratulations to my top 10. Congratulations to Welsh Duke for another top of the ladder moment. Special thank you to everybody for getting on board the competition. 34 might be a small number to some, but it's a nice big number to myself, and I'm only hoping to grow this moving forward. But now that we've gotten all the housekeeping out of the way and all the congratulations has been said from round 12, let's get our tips in for round 13. First cab off the rank, we have Adelaide hosting Geelong down at Adelaide Oval. We bring up the form guide over the last couple of outings. We have already seen Geelong and Adelaide play each other earlier this year. Geelong taking an 8-point win down at the Cattery. Prior to that, down at Adelaide Oval, we had a 19-point win the way of Geelong, and then the year prior, we had a 5-point win. So it's never blown out by more than 20 points, on the wayside of maybe 3 goals. This, however, is going to be a very interesting watch. No Riley Thilthorpe due to suspension, however Taylor Walker does come back in. No Isaac Rankin due to injury, but they have brought in their mid-season draftee for a debut, which is a great thing to see for any club, regardless of whether Adelaide doing it now or any other clubs do it moving forward. Whenever a mid-season draftee is brought in immediately and given an opportunity, always a great story. So I'm very keen to see that young kid get his opportunity at Adelaide and see how he goes for them. But for Geelong, we have a couple returning as well, and I just feel, given how Geelong... See, it's hard to get a read on Geelong because they absolutely destroyed Brisbane 2 weeks ago, and then last week when the game was on the line to be had, they failed to deliver against Carlton, and this is very much a game where you could sit here and say, well, Geelong could and should absolutely win this game by margins, but Adelaide coming back to Adelaide Oval, they play just, and many teams in retrospect, just play a different brand when finding, you know, some more continuity and comfortability in their own home grounds, and Adelaide Oval is one that Adelaide plays incredibly well. So I think this might end up being a much closer game than people give credit for, but I just feel no Isaac Rankin out of that midfield is a big drop. If they had the double-header team of Thilthorpe and Taylor Walker, I would argue that Adelaide would very much win this game, but I think being able to shut down Walker comfortably, and I think they might do, could be disastrous for Adelaide. Isaac Rankin out of that midfield, taking away that scoreboard pressure, having to rely on Rochelle, and Rochelle sometimes when it comes to delivering on his own accord and not having those extra players around him, doesn't live up to expectation, but he could come out and kick 3. It's a hard read. I'm going to go Geelong because I just feel collectively, seeing how both teams have been playing, Geelong have been playing a more sustainable, better brand, and I am going to go Geelong by 17 points. There's never been any bigger a win of 19, and I think within a 3-goal radius is probably a good way to look at this game. Friday night, one game. Finally, we're not having any double headers here. We've got Hawthorn taking on the Bulldogs. Now, Bulldogs picking up a nice win over Melbourne last week. Well, Collingwood, rather. It was Collingwood, wasn't it? It was Melbourne the week prior. So they've come out over the last 2 particular outings with some very hard-fought finishes that not many people would have given them much credit for. For Hawthorn, they've just been dialing it up and turning it around, and obviously Jack Gunston coming back into this lineup makes their forward line infinitely greater. We have Hawthorn already defeating the Bulldogs this year by a 40-point margin. Prior to that, it has been Hawthorn both other times. I just feel Hawthorn are playing a good brand. The Bulldogs have been battered from pillar to post. I mean, Marcus Bontempelli has been struggling, and Hawthorn have capabilities of throwing a Finn McGuinness type player on Bont here and shutting Bont down. And I feel if they can do that effectively enough, Hawthorn win this game by at least 5 goals, 30 points. We move on to Saturday. North Melbourne hosting Fremantle at Hands Oval. I'm only going to assume that's going to be down in Tasmania, and I cannot back against Fremantle here. The tale of the tape, the last time North Melbourne won, it was by one singular point back in 2023. Since then, it has been a convincing win in 2024 and a close contest in 2025. But I just feel, again, where both of these teams are at currently, Fremantle on an 11-game win streak. If they had not lost that game, which I think was under 10 points to Geelong, they would be sitting undefeated for their run this year, which is absolutely insane to think of. This is a game where Fremantle don't only have the opportunity to win, but win by margins that set percentage aside. And I've been saying throughout my tipping videos, throughout my round recap videos, the video podcasts that I do, that this year it is going to come down to margins and percentages, especially if you're looking for wildcard configurations. So while Fremantle are a game ahead of some other clubs here, we have the opportunity to keep piling on that percentage, which is only going to do them justice moving forward. But Fremantle comfortably for me. Next game is at People First. Q Clash, Gold Coast, Brisbane. Having a look at their last outings, Brisbane last year absolutely belted the shit out of them. Prior to that, the Gold Coast belted the shit out of Brisbane, and then it was a low-scoring, closer contest prior to that. We need to look at where these clubs are at collectively here. Gold Coast are coming off of the bye. They're fresh. They're going to have people like Rowell, Anderson, Miller, Petrarca, all fit, firing, and raring to go. Brisbane have lost 3 in a row, and they're losing games to teams that are pushing for premiership contention. So you could argue that they're in a state right now where they need to regather themselves. They need to pick up a win. You look at the Gold Coast, though, People's First Stadium, they play a different brand there. They're just a whole other beast to take on when it comes to playing at that oval. But yet, when we've seen all of these players I've listed, the Miller, the Anderson, the Rowell, the Petrarcas, all in one team, we haven't seen them fire from all cylinders like they should be firing. So I'm very tempted in this aspect to say this is the game where Brisbane turns it around. Tentatively, I am going to select the Gold Coast Suns. Just the fact that they're playing at People's First just gives me belief that they're going to get it done. This could very well change depending on the ins and outs for this game. If a Dane Zorko comes back in, if they can get some other players in like a Leicester. I'm not sure about the injuries to those that are keeping them out, whether they're long-term or not. But if Brisbane can get some recruits back, I think they can turn the game on its head. We then have West Coast taking on Port Adelaide up at Optus Stadium. Now, we have seen famously earlier this year the Eagles with that 2-point win down at Adelaide Oval. Prior to that, it was Port Adelaide both times. However, just given where they're at currently, call me crazy, I'm backing in the West Coast Eagles to get it done at Optus Stadium. We saw them play out of their skin against GWS, and if we can see them put on a performance like that against Port Adelaide, they will rip them from limb to limb, and I've got every confidence that the Eagles can get it done on their home deck. We then have Sydney, the first of Sunday, hosting St Kilda down at the SCG. Having a look at the form guide here, it has been the Saints, actually, 2 from the last 3 times. Very close contests each and every time, too. These guys always go down to the wire. Hard to see Sydney dropping the ball against St Kilda here. At least the likes of Charlie Curnow will be held more accountable with a Cal Wilkie keeping him quiet, but Brodie Grundy should come back into this game having a rest. Isaac Heaney coming off of a huge game. I think Richmond played them into some superior form, and they're going to be very hard to knock off on the day. Essendon taking on Carlton at the MCG. As we can see here, it has been Carlton all 3 times out of their last 3 outings, and it's Carlton here again. I don't see Essendon truly winning a game for the rest of the season. It's a hard prospect to get heads around, but I'm just going to go out and on a little whim here and just remind people that at the start of the season in my predictions video, I very brashly turned around and said I felt Richmond would win more games than Essendon this year, and right now, tailored tape speaks for itself. But Carlton, they do a number and a performance like that against Geelong, there is no way they fumble this game against Essendon. This is going to be Carlton the way of at least 6 goals. I'm that confident. Final game of the round, King's birthday. We have Collingwood taking on Melbourne at the MCG. It's a dead heat with the bookies. They can't determine who's going to win this. We have at least Collingwood have won one of their last 2. Melbourne dropping the ball against both GWS and the Western Bulldogs. The last time they saw each other, it was a 6-point win the way of Collingwood. Prior to that, it was a 1-point win the way of Collingwood, and then a very emphatic beatdown in 2024. This is going to be an interesting game because I feel there are players on both sides of the coin here that are ready and fit and firing. Collingwood put in a good effort last week against the Bulldogs, whereas Melbourne were very haphazard against the GWS team. I don't know whether losing the way they did to GWS is going to be a little bit demoralising to the younger kids of the Melbourne team, whereas we know Collingwood, they just come back out and they keep firing again. I'm very tempted here to lock in Collingwood again. This could be a game tentatively that I switch depending on ins and outs, but the way I'm looking for my tips this week, we are going with Geelong by 17 points, Hawthorn, Fremantle, Gold Coast, West Coast, Sydney, Carlton, and Collingwood. We have been taken out of the gauntlet, which hurts so much. So that is it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, GWS and Richmond, the 2 teams sitting this one out this given week. Do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, I would appreciate it if you took the time to hit that like button down below. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below about how your team is particularly going up until this point in time. We're officially at the halfway mark, so I'm looking at getting some content out over the next week or 2, talking about my rough idea on maybe Rising Star, my halfway All-Australian team, my halfway Best 22 Under 22 team. I'm looking at doing some things, so keep your eyes peeled. And if you want to get on board the community we are building, hit that subscribe button while you're at it as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.